In our first story, police in the Greater Accra region are insisting a 27-year-old man killed at Boba here in Accra is not as innocent as his family is claiming. The deceased, Emmanuel Amofa, was reportedly killed last Sunday when police confronted some suspects at a pub at Boba following a tip-off. The family maintains the deceased is not a criminal and have been waging a campaign to get the police to admit they killed an innocent man. A sister of the deceased, Nana Ekia Amofa, says the police were simply unprofessional in their conduct and the family will not relent until justice is served.
The bad guy said the gun wasn't for my brother. Apparently the policeman who ran after the guy who left the gun saw the guy drop the gun. But I don't know if they wanted a scapegoat. So they started saying the gun is yours and they started beating him up mercilessly. So in running for his life, he saw there's this house adjacent to the pub. He jumped over the wall. The police, they shot 3 gunshots on the wall. The gunshots, the marks are there. They followed him up, chased him. They shot 7 times on the building before they got my brother. So the caretaker said, all he heard was that my brother shouted and said, "You kill me, I'm not an armed robber." That was when he heard the gunshots, that they shot my brother. As if that wasn't enough, they dragged him from behind the house to where they parked their car. He didn't die on the spot. According to the 2 guys who were apprehended, the bad guy and his friend, they said the police were jubilating and they were using the back of the gun to hurt him until he died. So he actually died before they took him to the hospital. My dad has a heart issue. My mom is not well. And it hasn't been easy. My dad keeps crying and he doesn't understand. He keeps looking at his picture and he goes like, "No, this can't happen to us." My mom is not even able to talk. She's not crying. She's not talking. My mom is traumatized. My mom is... Until I am trying to be strong. Who's going to replace my brother? It's not easy for my parents. My mom nearly collapsed the other day. It's not easy.
A public relations officer of the Accra Region Police, ASP Efiatenge, says the claims by the family cannot be true and that the deceased was part of a gang of robbers who was shot when he resisted arrest. She's been narrating to Joy News how Emmanuel was killed in the police operation.
The police received a distress call around 2 a.m. to 3, where the patrol team was called in to respond to that distress call. In the process, they encountered 3 suspected armed robbers, including the deceased. And the deceased had with him a locally manufactured pistol, which I could show you right after our interview. And in an attempt to search him, he struggled with the police officer and took to his heels. And according to the operational men, they managed to demobilize him. And when he sustained gunshot wounds, he was sent to the hospital and unfortunately he passed on. That is the side of the police. Yes, we have heard the side of the family. We are also concerned if the family is saying their brother who was killed in this incident is not an armed robber. The police have heard, and we are also conducting thorough investigations into it. We know an incident had happened. As to what really led to the death, that is what I don't have. I don't have those full facts. What I have is what I've been made, or I have made available to you. If there are any other aspects of it, those will come up in the course of our investigations. There are investigators who are assigned to do thorough investigations to come back with a report, which of course even the administrative report has even begun. The full facts will unfold as the investigations go on. If you ask me, I may not be able to tell you.
Meanwhile, father of the deceased maintains his son should not have been killed by the police.
He has been disgraced. This amounts to defamatory of character. The whole family, plus the deceased, have been disgraced. So we want at least for them to come and tell us that we made a mistake. Yes, he has been shot, but he is not an armed robber.
Now, the Odumasi Krobo Circuit Court has remanded into police custody a 70-year-old man whose gun was used to kill his 4-year-old grandson. The crime is said to have been committed by another minor, the deceased 6-year-old brother, Thursday afternoon at Somaya in the eastern region. The 4-year-old boy died instantly as the impact of the gunshot left tissues and other contents of his head splattered in the room where the incident happened. Maxwell Agbagba has the rest of the story.
On the compound of the family house of the deceased, about 15 people are seated on the compound, all of them in a pensive mood. The father of the deceased 4-year-old has been unable to utter a word since and was in no mood to give an account of what happened. The head of family, Paddy Ohini Ologo, manned up to speak. He says the two brothers had gone to their grandfather's house to play when the older one pulled the trigger of the gun, which was loaded at the time, killing his brother on the spot.
Also, the grandfather wasn't around, so they were there with an elderly younger sister. You see, so all of a sudden, they don't know what happened. They had a gunshot. Before they read the younger sister would come out, this boy was found in a pool of blood. They left the gun under the bed, loaded. So I don't know how this boy got to know that the gun was under the bed. So that's why it's beating our imagination. How could this small boy get hold of a gun? Even the gun is even taller than the height. The gun is taller than the boy who did the shooting. You see now? Yeah. How come? We hate blood. You see now? So if we have to perform a lot of rites for this boy, as early as possible, if you don't do it, at a certain age, it will disturb him. Yes.
So you are looking at performing some rites?
Yes, so we definitely have to do it.
How soon are you looking at doing it?
As any time from now.
The Somanya District Police Commander ASP Isaac Otin says a psychologist will be assigned to the suspect who is a minor.
The law of Ghana cannot prosecute him, and because he's traumatized for now. So what we do is that we move for a psychologist to counsel him. And parents, how they were shouting at him, told the suicide because they're involuntary, and then what he's doing. So find a psychologist to counsel the boy for now. So he also calm down. This is what we are doing right now. So I try to contact some other actual hospital so they can counsel the small boy who is the minor.
The case was first brought to the Somanya Magistrate Court, but the judge said she did not have jurisdiction over the matter, so it was referred here to the Odumasi Circuit Court. The judge here remanded the suspect 2 weeks in police custody. The case has been adjourned to 8th of May. He is supposed to be kept in police custody as investigations continue. The accused was charged with possession of explosives, firearms and ammunition and negligently causing harm. In a statement to the police, the accused 70-year-old Benjamin Teta stated that on April 16th, he used his single-barreled gun to repel some armed robbers who came to his house, and that he forgot to take out the cartridge from the gun, which he left in his room under a table. The accused is expected to reappear on May 8th. Maxwell Agbagba, Joy News.
You're watching Joy News Prime. I'm Araba Kumsin. We're taking a short break. There's still more ahead. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now, it's barely 24 hours to the governing New Patriotic Party's regional elections across the country, but it appears the party is suffering some setbacks even before the exercise begins. We'll be getting live updates from our reporters across the country as the party gears up for Saturday's polls. We begin from the Volta region, where an aggrieved MPP Volta Regional Chairman aspirant Kofi Boateng has secured a court order to put on hold the regional election over claims of unfair treatment and disqualification. Mr. Boateng's campaign manager, Nelson Kumaoye, told journalists the injunction was necessary after the leadership of the party failed to recognize and address their concerns of unfair treatment.
We were running for the regional chairmanship, and actually they got to know that Kofi Boateng is going to win. So there are some cabals in the region here who feel they don't want the quality people to lead this party. If you want to believe what I am saying, you can look at the people, the 6 contestants that are contesting, and you look at Kofi Boateng's profile. You can see that he is the party man. He has done this job for 26 years as I'm speaking today in this region, so he knows every place of the region. But the cabals who have taken over this party just want to elbow him out of the place, and for that matter, we petition. They disqualify him on a WhatsApp platform, and when we asked the reason, they couldn't mind us. So quickly we put in a petition and serve the national chairman Freddie Blay and serve the acting general secretary John Boydu on the 4th of April, waiting patiently for 2 weeks for that mechanism. There are some rules in our party that we have internal mechanism. If anything, you must exhaust all those things before you can go ahead to do what you like. So we do that. We waited for them for 2 weeks, and they couldn't acknowledge receipt for our petition. So we have no other way, and our right cannot be jeopardized. And for that matter, it is only the court who can give us justice. So really, we went to the court, and then yesterday the court adjourned the case and gave us an order to serve the defendant, and we did that yesterday. And when they mentioned the case this morning, they were not in court, so the judge granted the injunction and stopped them for 10 days, and the judge let them know if they go ahead to do that, they will face the consequences.
So as we speak now, the MPP Regional Delegate Congress cannot be held according to the order from the High Court until 10 days after.
Until 10 days after, yes.
Now, Fred Kwame Asari is our Volta regional correspondent. He joins us live on the line. Fred, has the party received the injunction yet?
As of about 6 p.m., I spoke with one individual from the camp of Mr. Boateng, and then he told me that they were able to serve the party the injunction letter. They gave the letter to the regional chairperson, Esther Adrian. She is actually acting as the regional chairperson, so she received the letter at Hokwe, and then they were also able to serve the police and then the electoral commission copies of the injunction. So I should say that yes, the party received the letter, and then the police and electoral commission has also received theirs.
I see. So is that to say that tomorrow's election is on hold?
Well, I can't say for now that the elections would come off or not, unless tomorrow comes, because earlier when news broke that there was an injunction on the election, I heard some people saying that was even though an injunction has been placed on the election, it will still come on. But now that the injunction has been served, party members or executives of the party, I am sure tomorrow or come tomorrow the elections wouldn't hold.
Well, so what is the mood there? I mean, preparations towards tomorrow's regional election. I mean, are people still preparing for the polls nonetheless?
Yes, people are still preparing. I should say earlier in the morning, I was at the regional minister's where other party faithfuls where the residents preparing to go to Ohio before news broke. But then after the injunction news broke, so people were making their way to Ohio to make preparations for tomorrow's election.
All right, many thanks. And that is Fred Kwame Asari. He's our Volta regional correspondent joining us live with those details. Let's head to the Upper East region, where the chairmanship slot is expected to be keenly contested. As you know, that slot was held by Adams Mahama, who passed away following an acid attack against him. The race to find a suitable replacement for the late chairman is set to be fiercely contested by 5 persons, and we'll be joined on the line by Albert Sorry for more on this. So let's move on to the Upper West region. And in the Upper West region, correspondent Rafiq Salam has been speaking to Deputy Roads Minister Anthony Kabo on preparations ahead of Saturday's polls.
Well, we're looking at voting for the most competent, most experienced, most loyal activists of our party, those who have been with us throughout the struggle, those who understand the problems and pulse of our party. And I think that so far, most of the candidates who have put themselves out for this election have conducted themselves well, except for a few hitches here and there. But I think that the committee put in place to organize these elections have done a creditably good job. I think so far we are all here, and candidates are crisscrossing the various constituencies, seeking the mandate of the people, and of course lobbying MPs like us to also vote along their lines. Well, I think that it's a democratic party. People would, once elections are open, people will come up, but the party people also know those who have been with us in the times of difficulty, those who have worked their asses, I mean, in that way, they have worked themselves out seriously in this party and are known and understand how to coordinate the region, how to organize the region, how to take into account the various interest groups. You will agree with me that Upper West is a very complicated region when it comes to the political balances. And of course, at all points in time, we must ensure that people must feel involved, people must feel that they belong, and the various sects, the various sections, the various interest groups, the various opinions must all make a full reflection in our elections. And that is how we have organized our party over the last 10 years. Do you expect any confusion? Well, I don't. This is a very peaceful process. There is no ambiguity. People's campaigns have been decent. They are devoid of attacks, except for some comments that many of us think are not good for the cohesion of our party and the cohesion of our region. There must be no attempt by anybody to put tribes against each other.
Let's stay in the north, where correspondent Hashmin Mohammed reports the region will not hold its elections tomorrow because there are some constituencies that are yet to elect executives. Hashmin, good evening to you. So what constituencies have yet to elect the executives? For this, for which reason the polls won't come off?
Well, information I have gathered is that constituencies like Bunkrugu and then Yudo, they are yet to elect their executives. But I do understand that the case of the Bimbla constituency, elections were conducted and new executives were picked up in that constituency. So all this put together, the regional elections for the region has been shifted to next week, and the contest is expected to be keenly contested. The incumbent chairman, Mr. Bugre Nabu, is facing competition from 5 other contenders in the region.
And Hashmin, how does the contest look like from your point of view? From where you stand, is he set to retain the title, the position?
Well, it is going to be a keenly contested one because Mr. Bugre Nabu is facing a lot of competitions from even his former regional organizer in the region, who happens to be the Northern Regional Director for the National Disaster Management Organization. He's a very experienced politician. He has been with the party since 1992. There are several other people who are also showing up in the contest, and this happens to be one of the keenly contested one. In the last election, Mr. Bugre Nabu had a very rosy, but this time around, it is expected to be a very keenly contest.
All right. Many thanks, Hashmin Mohammed, with that update from the northern region. To the Ashanti region now, which is often referred to as the NPP's World Bank. The latest from that region is that Regional Chairman Bernard Enjibwe-Siaku, better known as Chairman Muntumi, is running unopposed. Insure FM's Kofi Asante has been monitoring events closely there. He joins us. Good evening to you, Kofi. So, under what circumstances did this close contender to Chairman Wontumi step down? We are getting reports that he was forced to step down. Is that true?
Well, I must say, not only the regional chairman Wontumi, which as at now going unopposed, but just this evening before coming on air, news coming from the party's office indicates that the Sampine, which is the current regional secretary, his main contender, which is called Kweku Atasapon, has also just stepped down. So as we speak, we have the regional chairman, Bernard Nchubo Siakon, going unopposed. We have the regional secretary, Sampine, going unopposed. And that has virtually brought the regional election, not much of any contest tomorrow at Edra, where they are going to have the election.
But it's quite interesting that, you know, the two top slots are the persons who are keenly contesting, who want the contenders for those slots, have stepped aside for the incumbents to run unopposed. What are the circumstances in that particular situation?
Well, I'm not hearing you properly, but I should say that in terms of organization, as at this evening, the party, the FFanto, who happens to be the chairman for the regional election campaign team, has assured all delegates that everything is set. As we speak, we have about 903 delegates, including MPs, as well as Council of Elders, who are going to elect the various executive positions. And before today, we had the youth organizing position, which we have about 6 of them contesting, including the deputy youth organizer, who also appears to be the regional director for a youth employment agency. We had information from the various TESCOM campuses that the album, there have been changes, and that called for some little misunderstanding. As at this evening, I'm told that the various individuals who are contesting and that they will need the album has been made available to them. And to that effect, you have the 6 individuals now. I should say they are okay. Another key area which we can look at is the regional organizing position. The current Maslok director, or the CEO for Maslok, Stephen Amwa, who was holding that position, is no more. So we have the deputy Daniel Ejenim Boateng, who is going with 4 others, and we have about 5 individuals now going for that position. It's a very keenly contested position. We are hoping that tomorrow, Edra, various delegates will have to prove who among the 6 will be leading the party. But we will not be surprised whatever that will happen. We have the regional NADMO coordinator, that is the regional NADMO coordinator, that's Kwame Century, who also happens to be the former first vice chairman for the party, now coming back to contest the same position, and is also one of the positions which is going to be a very sharp area to be looked at. We have 5 individuals contesting for that position. Then another area that will be much of interest to the delegates and the individuals, the party supporters in the region, will be the second vice. In this race, you have the former regional secretary for the party, Sam Kujo, at the same time, a former regional communication director contesting, and there appears to be a very big weight within the party that we are expecting that it will be much key area to be contested. But another interesting thing I can say is that Nana Asari Bediakon, that is, who happens to be the contender for Chairman and Nchubo Siakon, stepped down about 2 weeks ago, as we've already indicated. His stepping down has been surrounded with serious allegations as well as accusations. We are told that he was coerced by top executives. Others are mentioning even the President of the Republic for forcing him to step down for Bernard Nchubo Siakon, who apparently we believing that the president want to, compensate him for good work done as part of 2016, making sure that Asante region he hasn't having an overwhelming victory. But in his letter indicating his stepping down, he indicated circumstances beyond his control. And that phrase has been a subject of concern. His supporters, who were much anxious to have him seating the current chairman, which is Nchubu Otiakon, appears very disappointed and will not be surprised even if tomorrow he may not be going to Edra as well as some of them. So they will be returning from Edra tomorrow to have wounds to take care of if immediate measures are not taken in place to ensure that there is proper coordination among top executives in the region. But in all, we say that there appears to be set.
All right. Thank you so much. And that's Kofi Asante with our sister station, Insura FM in Kumasi. And stay tuned to this station. We'll be giving you updates from across the country tomorrow, Saturday, when the MPP goes to the polls. But let's come to Greater Accra region. And my colleague, Kwesi Parker-Wilson, is in the studio with me to give us details about preparations from the Greater Accra Regional Secretariat. So how are the preparations? Is everything set for tomorrow's polls? And how many people are contesting positions for the Greater Accra Regional polls?
We have 54 people or candidates for various positions in the party here in the Greater Accra region. I spoke to the Director of Communication, and then he told me that clearly they are ready for tomorrow's election. Though there are some issues within some constituencies. He named 2 constituencies. He mentioned Adenta and Okankwe South, where there are still issues ongoing there. But then the party has decided to go on with the election because they need 1/3 of the delegates.
What's the nature of those issues?
Well, they disqualified some candidates, and then they took it to court. I mean, for both constituencies.
Okay.
And so, I mean, it's in court. The party executives are trying to resolve the issue, but then they haven't been able to do that. Okay. But they are still going on with the elections. Now, the reason is that the party's constitution, you need to have about 1/3 of the delegate to form a quorum. Right. And if you look at the 34 seats or the constituencies in Greater Accra, almost about 30 are ready for the election. So definitely they form the quorum to proceed with the
So they will proceed with the election.
Exactly, they will proceed with the election.
Many thanks, Kwesi Parker-Wilson, with those details. Let's wrap this conversation up. And MPP's National Youth Organizer, Sami Opoku, has been speaking to Joy News. He says he's confident Saturday's polls will come off successfully despite the hiccups.
Well, for us as a party, we are done with our preparations. We believe that all is set for the various centers this week between now and the 28th for the delegates in the various regions to elect their regional executives to steer the affairs of the regional parties for the next 4 years. We've concluded arrangement with the various regions and the various regional election committees. So we are set. We have Ashanti region voting tomorrow at Ejura. We also now have voting on Sunday in Sunyani. We also have Central region voting on Sunday at Kaswa. We have Eastern region voting on Saturday in Koforidua. We have Greater Accra voting on Saturday at the Trade Fair Center. You have Northern region voting on the 28th at the Tamale Sports Stadium. You have Upper East voting at the Borga Nat Hall, while you have the Upper West voting in Wa. You have Volta voting in Hawaii, and you have Western region voting at the University of Mines and Technology in Takwa.
Let's talk about the voter region. There is an injunction by one Kofi Boateng.
We haven't been served with that as a party, and so we have no reason to stop there. And in any case, we need 1/3 of the gathered delegates to proceed. Yes, and people must also be careful. The NPP is not happy the way at the least concern people rush to the law court to frustrate the activities of the party. After the national executive elections, the party will visit all those who have taken us to court, without exhausting the various appellate structures of our party and the grievance procedures. And the party will also act in accordance.
And do stay tuned to Joy News, and this is your trusted news source for all the updates on Saturday's polls across the country. We're taking a short break right now. Business is up next. Don't go away.
Hello again, good evening to you. Time now for business The Filipino firm selected to manage ECG, Meralco, says it has the financial muscle and technical expertise to transform the woes of the power distribution firm. Meralco was yesterday announced as a new owner of ECG, subject to meeting government's requirements. The consortium, which is led by the Filipino firm and some Ghanaian companies, are expected to invest at least $500 million. Strategic advisor to the consortium, Fred Asamani, tells Joy Business their priority is to invest the required capital to turn around ECG.
The skeptics can go to sleep. You know, posterity will be the judge. But I can assure you that when it comes to efficiency in terms of commercial operations and technical capacity, Meralco is unassailable. Meralco is a thoroughbred organization. And it's also a people-centered company. It's very important. Meralco has won several international awards for being, you know, a preferred and most admired employer. Because, you know, in this business, apart from technological innovation and excellence, it's run by human beings. So the way those human beings are managed and challenged and trained and their competency increased is very, very important. And Meralco has all those qualities to ensure, you know, a very profitable venture for Ghanaians.
One would say that this is just the first step of the process. Media itself says that you are now going to do more of a formal engagement with government to convince them that you have the financial muscle and what you're bringing on board. How prepared are you for that government man-to-man talk and to show them the documents about why you should be the final winner of this whole process?
Well, we've been ready. If the negotiations commenced yesterday, we'll be ready. If they commence today, we'll be ready. So I can assure you that Meralco is here for the long run to work in partnership with the people of Ghana to ensure that the electricity distribution subsector is taken to a new level. You see, in a country like Ghana, or let's say in a country that wants to develop, to become industrialized, it is very, very important that we have stable, reliable, and highly available electricity for people to enjoy a good standard of living and for industries to prosper. So we are ready to deliver all of that. And we're also ready to negotiate with government on an equitable basis to ensure a win-win for all parties.
Is your over $500 million ready to pump in to take the little over 50% stake in ECG as well?
I think $500 million for Meralco is a drop in the ocean.
Meanwhile, energy think tank Africa Center for Energy Policy ACEP is upbeat Meralco can deliver considering its experience and background in the field. Executive Director Ben Boachi was adding his views to the Filipino company's success in the bidding process when I spoke with him earlier on the marketplace.
No, I think it's been a long process of getting the right company to take up the operations of ECG. And Meralco has emerged as the one that could go through the process. Whatever the challenges were, they were willing to go through the process, and they have emerged out of the competitive process. So if you have any challenges, it can remain in the realms of speculation once we don't have it in the public domain, and give the process the benefit of the doubt to say that they are the deserving winners. We know where they're coming from, Philippines, and I have said that the context in Philippines, in Nigeria, where they've worked, is similar to that of Ghana, where electricity theft, inefficiency was also a problem. You know, so they are confronted with similar challenges, and if they prove themselves there, then they should be able to deal with our situation as well. But ultimately, the solution is not just with Meralco, but also with Ghanaian authorities who are going to monitor the process to ensure that they deliver on the terms that will be agreed between the two parties. At this point, it's about the fact that Meralco has gone through the process and won. So we have a challenge to ensure that they deliver, and that should be our focus. How do we ensure that, regardless of their capacity, whatever they have, they should be able to deliver the output that is expected of them? And that's why I was saying that monitoring at this point is very key, and ensuring that the final negotiations take into account some serious performance benchmarks that we can consistently track to ensure that our bit of the bargain is catered for.
The Auditor General's Department will soon start investigations into a petition filed by the Public Interest Accountability Committee (PIAC) over non-existence of some oil-funded projects. The petition followed a report by the committee which revealed that about 50% of projects that were expected to be financed from the oil cash were not available. Chairman of the PIAC, Dr. Stephen Mantiao, who disclosed this to Joy Business, said they are prepared to cooperate with the Auditor General to deal with the issue.
Me, as an additional public oversight body, wouldn't have served our purpose fully if we just put out this information and left matters hanging. For which reason, we have taken the decision to refer our findings to the Auditor General for audit investigations. Based on the findings of the investigations, we will decide on the next step forward. But the ultimate objective is to hold people to account for the management and use of petroleum revenues. So if the findings come out and adverse findings are made against any group or individual, we'll refer the matter to the appropriate prosecutorial agency.
So have you heard from the Auditor General since you've made a move?
Yes, my information this morning is that the Auditor General has come back to us and expressed his willingness to meet next week. The day of the meeting is what we are trying to agree on, but definitely we are meeting the Auditor General next week.
Have you indicted specific people in this?
At this stage, no, but we have our own suspicions, and so we are compiling the dossier to aid the investigations. We will not rush into drawing conclusions at this time. We'll wait till the Auditor General has done his work, and then we'll pronounce what our response to the findings will be.
In other news, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture says government's Planting for Food and Jobs initiative has so far yielded some 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. The program, which began last year, is targeting declining growth of Ghana's agri sector. In an interview with Joy Business, Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture, George Udro, said yields from the 2017 season was above set targets.
Over 200,000 farmers were registered under the pilot phase of the Planting for Food and Jobs initiative in 2017. Crops targeted under the initiative included maize, sorghum, soybeans, rice, and some vegetables. Speaking to Joy Business, the Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture, George Odro, explained harvest from the program was above target.
In terms of yield, yes, we got 485,000 metric tons of maize, 179,000 tons of rice, with 19,000 metric tons of vegetables, with a street value of 1.2 billion cedis. That's what we were able to achieve for last year Planting for Food and Jobs. And this is additional job, addition to what existed already in the years before. The ministry spent 400 million, and our total street value of our harvest was 1.2 billion. So it's an achievement.
The Deputy Minister also noted the program will target 500,000 farmers for this year.
This year, our target is 500,000 farmers, or 500,000 people to get themselves engaged into farming activities. That's our target. And currently, the numbers we are receiving from the district is encouraging. So I'm sure you will exceed that target.
The Planting for Food and Jobs initiative is a 5-year-long policy which is geared towards increasing food productivity to ensure food security for the country, as well as reduce the food import bill to the barest minimum.
That's all by way of business tonight. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. There's more news ahead. Have a great weekend.
Welcome back. Now, President Akufo-Addo has presented to Parliament a list of the total number of employees at Jubilee House, totaling 998. The release of the list is in compliance with Section 11 of the Presidential Office Act 1993, which requires the President to submit annually to Parliament a report on the staffing position of the Office of the President. The breakdown was given as 9 ministers of state, 27 presidential staffers, 256 other junior appointees, and 706 employees of the public and civil service. Joseph Opoku joins me with more on this. Joseph, take us through this list, would you?
So a few things we gather. The list we understand was submitted to the House the day that Parliament went on recess.
Right.
So it's actually been in Parliament for a while now.
Right.
And additionally, from what we're gathering, per the details in the documents sent to Parliament, this is the list of presidential staffers as at 31st December 2017.
Right.
So things may have changed between December 2017 and now. Maybe some dropped, maybe more added on, but those are not captured in this particular list. And so it lists the ministers who are ministers of state working from the presidency, including the senior minister Yaosafo Mafo himself, and then other ministers like Ibrahim Mohammed Dan Butche, Mivisa Akumsen, Anthony Akutose, Boniface Abubakar Sadiq, the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, and also Sarah Juasa for Brane Champon and Professor Jan Bafo. A few things which are quite interesting. Eugene Ahin is listed in the list of those who are described as presidential staffers, 27 of them. And the title that is given him here is senior presidential aide. He's the only senior presidential aide on the list. There are other,
but we do know him to be director of communications. We know him to be director of communication. In fact, when he signs releases, that is how he signs, you know. That's the position that comes out. Exactly.
On this list, Director of Communications is a portfolio that is identified with Frank J. Chum, who we've always known to be the spokesperson for the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
Right.
Those are the two interesting bits, but then there are others on the list as well. For example, there is a position for, you know, an individual who is described as a lady in waiting, and that name is contained on page 12 on this particular list. So we've been making a number of calls to get a fair understanding of what exactly that portfolio means, but that individual is Hasiga Abdul Karim, who is listed as the lady in waiting. There are other names on the list, including Kweku Sechiado, who is identified as a communications consultant at the presidency, and a number of others, all totaling up to the 998 that we gather are working at the presidency.
Right. Joseph, the list made no mention of the 110 ministers.
In fact, it mentions 9 of them as being part of the presidency, and so the rest of a little over 101 are not on this list. If you add that on, then the figure is sitting probably 1,100, you know, something in that region. But that separates those that were identified in the list are the ministers who are the ministers of state who are operating from the presidency. Another surprising thing is that this list actually contains individuals who are special assistants to a number of ministers, including the Minister for Chieftaincy and Culture and 3 other ministers. We are still asking questions about how come special assistants and also personal aides to some of the ministers have been added onto this list as presidential staff.
That's quite interesting. But I mean, you've been doing some research. How does this list compare with that of the previous administration?
So we've been checking with the list that was brought to Parliament by former President John Agyekum Kufuor, for example, and we gather that back in the year 2005, he brought this list to Parliament. We'll get to that in a while. But with former President John Mahama, the details we gather indicate that he had a list of presidential staffers to the tune of 678. This is a list that's supposed to be taken to Parliament every year, but in 2013 he had a list of 678 persons working at the presidency. Former President John Kufuor also had something in that region. A little over 600 was the figure, something around 630 plus, also as the number of presidential staffers who worked in the office of former President John Kufuor.
I see. Interesting. The number just keeps going up and up and up and up. Well, thank you very much for those details, Joseph Opoku with those details of that list submitted to Parliament by the Office of the President. You're still watching Joy News Prime with me, Arba Kumsi. We're taking a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, a 28-year-old man has been arrested by police at Goso for allegedly impersonating former Bono-Ahafo Regional Minister Eric Opoku. Dennis Ofusihene reportedly called Goso Forest District Manager Godfrey Kwashiga on phone, introducing himself as the former minister, requesting the release of an intercepted timber truck belonging to a contractor. Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin reports.
Luck eluded Ofosuhene when Mr. Kwashiga asked that the owner come to the office for a dialogue. The forestry manager explains how he exposed the man after the truck had been intercepted by joint military and police team.
Indeed, around 4:15 p.m., I got to the office. And not quite long, a young gentleman entered my office. And he was here in connection with the arrested vehicle, of which I was being spoken to by the alleged honorable minister. After our interrogation, I was able to identify his name as Dennis Ofosuhene. And on my phone also, I managed to track his name, which corresponded to what he mentioned to me. So quickly enough, I played fast on him and asked that he waits a little whilst I meet my two deputies, and then he walked out of the office. I quickly called my two deputies in the person of George Kwame and Ernest Adolfo. Then invited the CID who have been assigned to forestry duties in Goso.
Ofosuhene confesses to the act of impersonation.
And upon interrogation, we got his name again as Dennis Ofosuhene. And through questioning, he came out and then said that really he spoke to me as the district manager and posed as the regional minister, the former our regional minister Eric Opoku, honorable. In fact, I realized that it was an impersonation and at the same time deceiving a senior public officer.
According to Mr. Kwashiga, he is guided by past experience to be on his guide.
Almost every week you can get such calls, about 10. And it had been the routine thing in our daily activities. People will call, some will tell you they are from the national security, some will call their ministers, some they will call their this and that. And we realize that most of them are not the real people we think are calling us.
Dennis Ofosuhene would be put before court after further investigation. Meanwhile, over 130 chainsaw machines seized by forestry officials are awaiting destruction by court order. Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin reporting.
Now, Interior Minister Ambrose Derry has pledged to make the Gaming Commission the best in Ghana and West Africa. Speaking during a familiarization tour of its new office in Accra, Mr. Derry called on the Commission to play its role effectively and ensure that the right persons are engaged in the industry. Ifwa Evans-Chinnery reports.
The minister's tour was to enable him get first-hand information on activities at the new office of the Gaming Commission. Mr. Derry says the ministry will continue to support the Gaming Commission to flash out all illegal gaming operators and centers in the country. The commission has over the years received backlash from some Ghanaians over concerns that school children have been spending school hours and weekends engaging in gambling. The minister wants operators to disallow underage children from patronizing gaming centers.
The Gaming Commission has shown that given the opportunity, it can do a lot better than it's doing. Already it is doing very, very well. And I think that's important to emphasize that in these matters, you need an independent regulator that will make sure that the players play according to the rules and also ensure that we do not risk the future of our children. We need to protect our children from some of these activities to make sure that they do not get involved before they are mature and that those who play are indeed qualified to play, and that people, when they have their women's, are going to be given what they deserve. What we observe in the past is a lot of illegal operators. I go to my constituency, the smallest village, and you see some foreigners with machines in those places. I think just over the year they've done a lot to bring a lot of those practitioners to book, and we want this gaming commission to be the best in Africa, one of the best in the world.
Peter Miracle is the acting commissioner of the Gaming Commission. He said the commission will continue to ensure the gaming business improves in the country.
The illegal gaming and also underage gaming, which myself and my team are on top of it now. But so we're working so hard to flush the whole gaming environment with illegal operators, those who are not in our books. The slot machines, as you all can see, are all over the country, which are operated by some registered operators in our books and some illegal ones. Confiscations is ongoing, and destruction is also ongoing. Machines that we get and they are not part of us, they are not in our books, are being destroyed. We're taking detailed inventory of every machine all over the country, and as we speak now, we're carrying out a detailed research on the landscape of gaming in the country too.
According to Mr. Derry, government remains committed to promoting a gaming environment where the industry would be an enjoyable leisure activity devoid of criminality.
The Wa East District Assembly has once again failed to settle on a presiding member to steer its meetings. The latest attempt on Wednesday is the third time in a year the Assembly has tried to elect a presiding member, and a number of administrative and development activities are said to be stalling in the district as a result. Joining us Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from Funsi, the capital of the Wa East District.
For the past 1 year, incumbent presiding member Issa Jimpeng, who is seeking re-election, has been engaged in a dogfight against former Wa East Constituency Secretary of the MPP, Suglo Nuruddin, for the right to lead a 36-member assembly. The last time the assembly attempted to elect a presiding member was in December 2017, when the two arch rivals failed to get the 2/3 votes required to win. 5 months after the failed attempt, many were of the belief that the assembly will this time be third time lucky. The story was, however, no different, as the election ran into a stalemate, with both candidates sharing equally the votes of the 32-member present. In an earlier address to the assembly, the acting Upper West Region Minister Amidu Chine Isako questioned how responsive the assembly members were to the aspirations of the ordinary people, and sounded a caution to them that the success or otherwise of the assembly rests on their shoulders.
When you are given power so that you seek the welfare of the people. And every decision that you make, you have to reflect on how it affects the people. As an assembly, I know you are always looking for revenue. PM, are you not striving for revenue so that you can take development? Now, so if those of you who are asking the ordinary citizens to pay revenue, to pay taxes on their cattle, on their property, and you have to spend that revenue meeting always to elect a presiding member, and you are not able to do it, are you responsive to the aspirations of the ordinary people?
What is District Chief Executive Moses Jotie expressed concern over the lack of a hospital for the district? The situation, he says, has forced residents to travel out of the district to seek medical care. Moses Jotie, however, laid bare plans of the assembly to have one.
It is regrettable to observe that we do not have a district hospital after more than 30 years of existence. My office in the very near future recommends putting into place facilities that will enable a start with a health center that will later on be upgraded to a district hospital at the proposed hospital site. In this direction, we intend to construct an OPD, consulting rooms and offices complex. If the House ratifies the applicable recommendation of the Executive Committee, I therefore count on the kind consideration of honorable Assembly members to enable us accommodate the project in the 2018 composite budget.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam, Fonsi.
Now, winners of last year's Cosmos Agritech Challenge have expressed satisfaction with how their startup businesses are faring so far. One of the groups, Trotro Tractor, which provides plowing services to farmers across the country, is confident the business will expand and offer job opportunities to Ghanaians. John News' Jacqueline Sylvia Nate has been interacting with the young entrepreneurs who have been celebrated for their achievement.
6 startup businesses have so far benefited.
If you look at agri sector now, you have a lot of old people in it because they use cutlasses and hoes, and so youth don't want to go into that. But with technology now, youth are our target. If youth use mobile phones and mobile money and the internet technology, they'll be able to access tractor services. And that would help people move into agriculture. Instead of using cutlasses and hoe, they know that there is mechanization services which they can get at a very easy way.
Aquaculture helps poultry farmers to record, monitor and track their farm operations in real time, both on-site and off-site. So we have both an online and offline version of our technology, both mobile and web technology, to help these farmers easily manage their farms. We also connect them to markets to sell their birds and their eggs, and also find real-time on-demand access to their value chain players.
There are farmers sitting in the rural areas looking for commodities for market to sell. On the other hand, also there are big organizations looking for commodities to buy. There's nobody connecting the two. So you know who is playing in that role is the middleman. The middleman goes to the farmer, buys it very cheap. The farmer doesn't even make money, comes to sell it, so the middleman is making so much profit. So we created this platform to give equity in trading, where farmers can realize value for their sweat.
Director of KIC, George Sapon, explains the challenge aims to create sustainable businesses with particular focus on agriculture.
For those that would be interested in coming, that would be 2019 cycle. That is basically anybody that has passion to start a business, particularly since we are focused in the agri value chain. So anybody that has that passion to start a business in agri value chain, I call it the fire in the belly. Pretty much means you have that burning desire to go and contribute your quota to Ghana.
Celebrating the young entrepreneurs, some of whom have received global awards and recognition from Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, Country Director of Cosmos Ghana, said the project has great prospects.
It's going to continue to grow. First, when we started, our objective was to each year select 2 companies that we would take through incubation, finance, and then get them ready after the 12 months for them to launch their business. The second year, when we were selecting 2, we realized that we had such a quality pool to pull from that all the finalists ended up being in the program. So instead of having 2, we have 4 in the incubation right now. And we think we will scale it up. So the future is bright, and it's going to be something that will stay with us for a long haul.
Now, she's been branded a cursed woman. Her husband had abandoned her. Until date, she remains stigmatized by her family after 3 of her 5 children developed varying forms of disabilities. That's the plight of 58-year-old Gladys Akrong, a petty trader at Osu. In spite of all the hostilities around her, Gladys is boldly fighting to keep her children alive. Here's a report by Joy News' Beryl Ernestina Richter.
Meet Gladys, mother of 5 children. 3 of Gladys's children all have speech and hearing impairments. Her 4th child, Richard Lanty, is 30 years. Richard's condition is the most serious. He suffers from epilepsy and cerebral palsy. When Richard was only 2 years old, he had convulsion which seriously affected his growth.
After 2 years,
After 2 years, he started having difficulties with his speech. When he had the convulsion, we all thought he had died. We even prepared a coffin for him, but he later gained consciousness.
Gladys considered herself fortunate because her husband was supportive initially, but that support ceased after a few years.
Their father has stopped catering for them. He now has children with other women. He barely checks up on them. And the last time he was here was 2 months ago, and he only gave us 100 cedis. We haven't heard from him since then.
Lawrence is Gladys's 5th child. He is 28 years old. When Lawrence was only 2 years, he started showing symptoms of epilepsy. He would shake, fall, and drool on his mouth. Doctors later confirmed to Gladys that her son had epilepsy. Gladys left the hospital devastated, having another child with epilepsy.
He was fine in his early days. I was therefore surprised when this happened. A pastor once told me that the medical conditions of my children are spiritual attacks. Lawrence was once a brilliant student, but had to stop school because of his condition. It affected his writing skills. I always question God why 3 of my children are suffering.
Consultant neurologist and head of Department of Medicine and Therapeutics at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Dr. Patrick Ejay explains cases of this nature could be linked to genetic abnormalities.
It's a family of 5 where the last 3 are affected. Causes of such thing, if you ask me, it would be genetic. It could be a pure single gene inheritance, or it could have occurred after the children were born, where they call de novo mutations after birth. But what we've got to realize, most genetic anomalies really have occurred after birth. They might not necessarily be that the parents might have it. They will have occurred after birth, where the growing child has de novo mutations that lead to the abnormal presentations that these patients.
People with conditions like that of Richard and Lawrence need frequent medical assessment and attention. But unfortunately, due to the lack of finance, Gladys is unable to access healthcare services for the 2.
Some years ago, I was asked to pay 200 cedis for Lawrence to undergo a scan, but he was unable to do so because I could not afford the money. Later, an NGO paid for the scan, but he had to continue with other therapies and treatments, which he could not do because I could not afford that too.
Dr. Patrick Ejay also emphasizes the need for thorough medical examination and assessment of people with such cases.
Seizures that are not treated well also can lead to significant brain damage, and that can lead to developmental abnormalities. Very difficult to treat, but if these patients find themselves in hospitals, we can control really the seizures. Once you control the seizures, you can help reduce the brain dysfunction that occurs. I think, in effect, if the mother had continued her visits to the hospital and the doctors had continually prescribed her medication, I think it could have helped most of these children, really, rather than to have left them to have seizures unattended to.
As is typical in many societies, Gladys and her children have been stigmatized in a lot of ways. People find it strange that 3 of her children suffer one form of disability or another.
I am always ridiculed. I am now used to the insults. They are my children. I can't kill them. My only prayer is that they should die before I do, because if I die first, I don't think anybody else will take care of them like I do. Even my own relatives have neglected me.
The burden of a mother, the weight of motherhood, the need for love, and the outlook of better times ahead. That's the story of Gladys Akron. For Joy News, Beryl Ernestina Richter.
Let's take our headlines now. And the family of a 27-year-old man gunned down at boba here in Accra is accusing the police of killing an innocent man. The police, however, insist Emmanuel Amofa is not as innocent as the family would want the world to believe. Meanwhile, in the eastern region, a 4-year-old has been killed by his grandfather's gun, fired by his 6-year-old brother. Barely 24 hours to the governing New Patriotic Party's regional elections across the country, there is trouble in the Volta region where the disqualified aspiring regional chairman has secured a court injunction to stop the polls. In business, Africa Center for Energy Policy optimistic the firm elected to take over electricity distribution in Ghana, Mineralco, has the capacity to revamp the electricity company of Ghana, even as the Filipino firm awaits final negotiations with government.